So welcome to episode 21 of Conversation on Eagle Mountain, a podcast about the tribe. I'm your host Lance, and joining me on the podcast panel today is Liz.
Hello.
Hill.
Hey.
And Sabine.
Hi.
With episode notes done by Matt, Catha, and myself.
Come on! Trudy, wake up, you stupid girl! Well, she is. Pulling a stunt like this.
Episode 21. The screenplay was done by Anthony Reed. It was directed by Lawrence Wilson, and the episode synopsis will be read out by Hill.
Trudy decides to take her depression into her own hands by drowning a bunch of sleeping pills and is discovered by Sabine, who chooses to do nothing about it. Although Trudy regains consciousness, Dal suffers from guilty feelings for having brought the pills into the mall to begin with, and the relationship between Dal and Jack is strained when Dal chooses to spend more time helping restore Trudy's health than working with Jack on his homemade battery charger.
Episode 21, Awoken by Brady's Cries, Celine discovers an unconscious Trudy alongside the bottle of tablets. But instead of raising the alarm, Celine takes Brady and leaves. So, immediate thoughts panel. Were you shocked at Celine's actions here? Did you think that she understood what was happened? And yeah, what do you think of her actions in the immediate aftermath?
I think she fully understood what was happening and just thought good riddance.
Yeah. Celine had written Trudy off at that point. Like, she's like, you're dead. I'm going to take your kid. Bye.
She didn't even bother to try and get any help. She just took the baby and thought, oh well, now I'm going to have my little happy family.
And even like sitting there in the cafe, like she was just being very smug and just kind of gross through it all. I forget the actual line, but it was just very catty and disgusting.
The only reason she responded was that Bray called out to her for help.
Yeah.
And even at that, her first response was, oh great, now I finally get to smack her in the face and call her a stupid cow.
I mean, I understand that point, like to try and get her up, but it just, meh.
I don't want to defend Celine's actions. I want that clear straight away. I don't want anyone to think I'm justifying what Celine did. I agree that what she did was awful. It's not just that she left Trudy there. You could say that she was just very angry and she made a silly, selfish decision in the spur of the moment. It's the fact that she has time to think about what she's done and she still does nothing to rectify it. You know, I can understand her going into the room, probably already irritated because once again, Trudy's not seeing to her child. And here comes Celine to the rescue, knowing that she's not going to be thanked for this and that Trudy's going to have a go at her over it. Only to find, you know, Brady screaming, Trudy asleep, and then to realize what Trudy's done. I can understand her acting out in petty rage at that moment. But it's the fact that she had hours to think about that and change her mind, you know, and realize, no, I don't hate her that much, or, you know, she may have been mean to me, she may have been terrible to me, but she doesn't deserve to be left to die, or just anything, any kind of wrangling with her morality. And the fact that she doesn't, I think, is what shocks me. Because we've all made, like, terrible decisions in the spur of a moment, but most of the time we don't have time to actually think about them. And she did. And, like, I completely understand whatever anger Celine was feeling, because she started off offering Trudy nothing but kindness and friendship and support and comfort, and Trudy basically spat in her face. And Trudy made Celine into her enemy. So I get Celine hating Trudy enough that in that moment, she's just like, I don't freaking care what this girl did to herself. It's not my problem. Why should I have any consideration for her when she doesn't have consideration for anybody else? But when you have the time to think about it and she still didn't do anything, and like you said, there she is at the breakfast table. She's clearly been awake. And when Bray confronts her, there's still an anger in her when she tells him she's not fit to be a mother. I think there's something very personal. I think Celine takes it personally that Trudy would commit suicide when she has a child, because we know Celine, one, tends to victim blame, and two, she has a lot of abandonment issues because of her father and the abuse she suffered from her mother. And so I think for Celine, the idea that a mother would choose to leave her child through whatever means, as far as Celine's convinced, it's unforgivable to her, you know?
In Celine's, like, worldview right now, she thinks Trudy has it all. Like, she's got the guy, or she somewhat has the guy. She's got the baby. Like, she has everything that Celine wants at this point. So why would she kill herself? Like, I think that's what Celine thinks in that point. And now that, you know, she has killed herself, or apparently killed herself, that leaves the door open for Celine, who would not make the same mistake because that's what she wants. And I think that's what Celine thinks.
Well, and she just feels she's better than Trudy. I mean, she says it, you're better off with me, aren't you, sweetie? I'd make a much better mother, wouldn't I?
Well, she's not wrong. She has a reason for feeling that way. Trudy has not been a good mother to Brady. So I completely understand Celine feeling that way. She's, you know, we've seen the way Celine is with the children, and anybody who wouldn't take care of a child properly, Celine looks down upon them. And in her eyes, like Hill said, she thinks of Trudy as blessed. She's got this beautiful child. She has this family member, and she just doesn't care about her. And she's willing to throw that away over a guy. Celine sees that as unforgivable. You don't deserve this kid, you know? And again, I'm not saying she's right. I want that clear. But, you know, I'm trying to understand where she's coming from, why she was able to make a decision like that. I don't think I've ever hated anybody enough. But at the same time, I kind of get it. Like, okay, Celine would probably never do anything to Trudy proactively of her own volition. Like, she would never put poison in Trudy's food to get rid of her. But I do understand how easy it is if you can see, if something bad happens to someone you don't like, and the only thing you have to do is just not say anything about it, it's easy to justify that to yourself. Like, well, I didn't do it. She did this to herself. Why should it be my responsibility to say anything or raise the alarm or get help? She's the one who wants to do this. Why should I care? It's not my responsibility.
On the other hand, Celine has a lot to gain if Trudy dies.
Exactly.
Well, we've all had somebody in our life who made us so miserable that if we found out they were gone, we wouldn't be sad about it. You know, we'd be like, oh, that's a shame. You know, like, I can get that. Again, not defending her, just trying to understand what was going on in her head. I've had moments when my ex-husband and I first divorced. I would not have acted out against him, even though I was angry at him and I hated him. I wouldn't have done anything to him, but I ain't gonna lie. If something had happened to him, I wouldn't have felt bad about it because I was so angry. You know, I would have been like, oh, that's a shame. Look at that. That happened to you. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? But yeah, I feel like that's the way Celine sees it. She didn't have a hand in this, and it's not her responsibility to do anything about it. And she sees it as a selfish act, but it's creepy that she had time to think about it and still didn't change her mind.
I think that point is what really gets me. I can almost forgive the initial aspect of leaving her, but it's the fact that she had the rest of the night with Brady and didn't do anything that really gets me.
And didn't really show any concern or care or anything until Bray got into it. And once Bray sounded the concern, Celine was right there.
Yeah.
You know, putting on the act.
But yeah, even then it was like an act. It was like, oh, you silly girl, come on.
Like, it was just an act for Bray at that point.
I also wouldn't be surprised if the way Celine saw it is that this is something Trudy would have done to her. You know, if you treat someone with kindness and you give them consideration and they basically just pop a squat on you in return, you're going to reach a point where you have no consideration for them anymore. And in your brain, that's okay. You tell yourself they don't deserve my consideration, and you just don't care about them as a human anymore. And you don't You believe that they would do the same horrible things to you. Celine has every reason to believe that Trudy would treat her the exact same way. So she justifies it in her head as, it's fine that I did this to you. I don't have to care about you because you don't care about anybody. So what are we losing if you die? Really? Like, what are we losing in Celine's eyes? They're certainly not losing a productive member of the team or anybody that, like, they're not losing a person that everybody likes. They're not losing somebody that likes them. What is Brady losing in Celine's eyes? Certainly not a mother who cares about her. Again, I feel like I need to keep saying, I'm not defending her because it sounds like I am, but I totally am not. But yeah, from Celine's point of view, what she's doing is completely justified, even though it's not. It's very unforgivable. Because no matter how awful Trudy has been to Celine, I don't think anything Trudy did is bad enough to justify leaving her to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
But if it had been anyone else, would she have stepped away?
of course not. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have a reason to hate anyone that way.
I do kind of like the poetic justice that the person who does find her is the person who hates her the most
Mm.
and has the most to gain from Trudy leaving.
And it's an enemy that Trudy made herself.
Yeah.
Because Celine started off as an ally. You know what I mean? She didn't turn on
Definitely.
Trudy until Trudy turned on her. So yeah, there is something very poetic about that.
You know, like anyone else who would have stumbled upon that scene would have done something totally different.
Heck, even Lex would have acted.
Yeah, I was thinking the same exact thing, actually.
Even Lex
Yeah.
would have just got an Amber or Dell.
Did this completely change your opinion of the character? Did it put you off of them, or?
I can't say, Celine was never one of my favorite characters. So this wasn't like, it didn't really
think
have that much of an effect on me.
To me, it just showed a different depth of the character. Like, here's this person that everyone thinks is this sweet, innocent, motherly character who has this dark side almost. And she will do whatever she thinks is right to get her way, which isn't talked about a lot.
I thought it is the beginning of a cycle of behavior with Celine. Celine sometimes, well, more often than not, tends to latch on to an idea or decision without thinking about the consequences at all.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, there is no gray area in that decision, even if there are better options. If she just thought about it, she just decides this is what I'm going to do. And she goes in completely hard. And then it's not until the consequences are stabbing her in the face, then she starts to be like, oh, I don't know how I got here. You know, can sometimes act a victim when she ends up in that place. When really, if she had just taken the time to think about what she was doing, she wouldn't have ended up there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the first times you see her just make a decision like this. She decided, screw it, I'm leaving Trudy to die. I don't care. She had plenty of time to change her mind and do something about it, get help, anything. But no, she was sold on it. This is what I'm doing. I'm committing to it. No matter how bad an idea or how horrible it was, she committed to this idea. And it wasn't until the consequences come back that she starts to feel any sort of guilt or regret for what she did. And at that point, you're like, how sincere is your regret? You know?
Yeah.
Because you could have avoided this. You didn't have to do what you did. And you will see this from Celine down the pipe. Hill's right. Like, Celine has a great, beautiful side to her. It's very nurturing and loving and caring. But man, her dark side is really dark. And yeah, people don't really talk about it. It's excused often. But I do think that's interesting that the writers tend to do that. They take the characters into one direction so far that we never expect anything different from that character. And then out of nowhere, they'll turn the tables and show you a whole different side of them. And you're completely taken off guard. You did not know the character was capable of that. And with Celine, here we are. I knew Celine was angry at Trudy. I never knew she'd go this far over it, though.
Well, I think it was a sneaky thing to do anyway. Scaring everybody like that.
Yeah, well, you would say that. We all know why she did it.
You trying to blame it on me?
No. You can't help it if you've got the hots for Bray.
Hey, Amber, you can't say things like that.
It's not her fault. He shouldn't have let her on.
You're the one to blame. For messing Trudy around the whole time.
I never promised her anything. Except that I'd look after her and the baby. That's all.
Oh, don't give me that! You led her on! All that, look at me, I'm so wonderful and caring, I'm such a great human being.
I couldn't have just left her like that, could I? Not in her condition.
You brought her here. You took responsibility for her and you let her down. You kicked her in the teeth. That's why she tried to kill herself.
That leads us on to the question of who really is to blame. Because as the rest of the tribe find out about Trudy's overdose, there's a lot of blame being thrown around. Celine blames Trudy herself, Amber blames Bray, and Dal blames himself. What are your views on the various discussions that take place in the aftermath of Trudy's suicide? And is Bray really to blame for all of it? He gets a lot of heat in this episode.
I think it's very realistic, and there's some realistic soul searching. And I do believe that Dal is the most like adorable thing, like really kind of broken up over it, and he's the only one, in my opinion, that really kind of takes what has happened to heart and really like he blames himself, and I think it's adorable. Like,
Yeah, if there's anyone without blame, it's Dal.
yeah, like Dal really doesn't have that much blame, and he takes it so hard. I just want to give him a hug.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone's to blame. Not even Trudy. She may be responsible for her actions, but I don't think she's to blame for her mindset that led her there. And I don't think she's to blame, because I do think there is something not quite right with Trudy's psyche, and I don't think Bray is to blame. And I don't think it's fair to blame him because he's not in love with her, and I don't think Celine's to blame. I mean, not to blame for what Trudy did. She's to blame for leaving Trudy there, but I don't think anyone's to blame. Circumstances happen. You can't be responsible for someone else's emotional well-being like that. There's always something maybe you could have done better, but you're not responsible for the choice another person makes. Maybe you could have handled something better. Maybe you could have supported them better. But at the end of the day, they made this choice, and there was no way you could have seen it coming or done anything to prevent it. So I don't think it is fair to blame any of them. Dal certainly isn't to blame for bringing medicines into the mall. Any medicine he brought into the mall could have been mishandled. Not just sleeping pills. You take enough aspirin, that'll be your last nap. You know what I mean? Like, anything he brought could have been used poorly. He's certainly not to blame that Trudy got it in her head to do this. And no, I don't believe Bray's to blame. And I certainly don't think it's fair that Amber is taking out her anger at Bray by blaming him for this. Because that's what it's about. Amber's upset at Bray because she wants him, and she's pissed that he has chosen Celine, and she's using it as a way to mask how she really feels. And so, she's making this all about him. You're a jerk. And really, it's just that she liked him, and he turned out not to be the way she thought he would be. So not cool, in my opinion. And I don't think Trudy's to blame for her mindset.
I don't think I really have much to add to that. I think you said it all.
But I think I agree with Hill that it's a good conversation, because that's exactly what happens when somebody harms themselves. We don't know how to deal with that. You know what I mean? We're trying to make sense of the action that they took. Often, we're looking for a catalyst, or we're looking for some sort of blame for it, and often it's just not that simple,
Like, you always hear after someone has done something, whether it's just, an attempt or an actual suicide, if I would have seen this, or if I would have known this, like, it's almost like you always want the person to reach out, and that's actually the hardest thing, is when you're in that mindset. And it really is a hard conversation on all ends.
No, but it's also very logical for wonder what they could have done differently, feel bad about something they did, even though it wasn't that big of a contribution to the whole, because there's so many things to factor in that there's never one specific person to blame. At least specifically in this case, there isn't.
But sometimes just blaming makes it a little easier, because it makes at least some sense.
Yeah.
You can tell yourself, okay, this is logically the progression. This person did this and she did this. So that makes sense in your head. Otherwise, your brain would blow up trying to process what you've just been through.
It's a way of coping.
Yeah.
And it also washes your hands.
Yeah.
Of like not seeing something. Like, oh, I didn't see this, but Bray didn't see it either. So it's cool, whatever.
And often we don't want to blame the person who's done it. You know, no, like you don't want to speak ill of the dead. You know, and when someone leaves you like this, the last thing you want to do is be angry at them, even if you are angry at them for putting you through this and making you feel this way and scaring you or hurting you this way. There's a part of you that does want to blame them for doing this. They're the one who took the act and put you through this, but you can't blame them. So you have to find something else that's to blame. Which is interesting because Celine skips over all of that and immediately blames Trudy because she's projecting to deal with her own guilt.
Yeah, because if she blames it on Trudy completely, then she's off the hook for not taking any action.
Right.
Exactly.
And I do think Dal is the only one who's got the most sincere feelings about the situation. Because, like I said, Amber's only blaming Bray because she's angry at him for being involved with Celine. And this is how she's dealing with her own jealousy. And she's angry at him and not being the guy she wanted him to be. So suddenly it's all his fault that Trudy has been like this. It's all his fault that Trudy's so depressed and he should have fixed it. He should have been the perfect guy for Trudy, even though he doesn't care about her, blah, blah, blah. That's how Amber's processing her feelings. And Dal's the only one who's really sincere, like genuine.
I feel bad for Dal. Like,
yeah,
he takes it so hard. And really, like, he's the only one, it feels like, that's sincere about it. And it's so crushing.
I do admire the fact that the writers, again, they could have easily made Trudy super easy to feel sorry for, you know, but they don't. Trudy's a difficult character, and a lot of viewers at this point just didn't like her. So it makes her suicide attempt even more difficult to decide how you feel, because at this point, how many viewers would be sad if Trudy died? You know, like she's been such a difficult and unlikable character for many people that it makes it a lot harder to get a handle on your feelings about her compared to somebody else who you might really love or really hate. And I like that because it takes all the romance out of suicidal ideology. You know, there's nothing pretty about what Trudy does. There's nothing glorious. It doesn't make Bray suddenly realize he desperately loves her. In fact, his first instinct is just to run away from the mall. He doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, he's desperate to save her, but then once she's okay, he's like, all right, I'm out. I gotta go. I can't deal with this. Didn't make him discover any true great love for her. It's not pretty. It's gross, you know. And it doesn't fix anything. It just has people yelling at each other, and very few people feel sorry for her. They're just annoyed. They're upset that this happened. But the only two who really seem truly upset about what Trudy did are Amber and Dal. Amber because she feels responsible for everybody, and Dal because he's the one who brought the pills in. And that's interesting, because any other show might have gone the more cliche route with this and made it a very after school special, and there'd be a lot of sympathy for Trudy, and it'd be very clear cut how we should feel. And they don't do that. They don't take the easy way out here.
I think that's one of the strengths of the show, though.
Yeah, always.
I don't know how the scene would be handled today. I actually was wondering, like, how do you guys feel? Do you feel that Trudy has been portrayed fairly for an audience, whereas they don't lean too hard into sympathizing with her while at the same time doing a good job at letting you understand what is going on in this girl's head? Do you think they've been fair with their portrayal of Trudy and all of this and what she did?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I think if it was shown today, filmed today, they would have probably given a bit more clarity about what was going on with Trudy, more information about the mental issues she's struggling with. And, well, we would have been bombarded with texts over the screen for prevention of suicide hotlines.
It's true.
Very true. They would have, like, cut away, and it would have been like, hi, I'm Antonia Preble, and this is what you need to do if you, like, it would have been very, like, as you said, after school special. Like, I could see that happen. And I'm glad that we have it as raw as, and it doesn't glorify suicide or suicidal ideology at all. If anything, it makes it more real. Like, nothing magically fixes for Trudy.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't get the guy. She doesn't, you know, everyone's not falling over her. It doesn't make it a happy ending.
Nothing is fixed by her actions.
Yeah, nothing is fixed.
Not a happy ending. Not everyone actually worried over her. Just a couple of people.
Liz said it last week, I guess it was, where, you know, when she was a kid, she had these thoughts and wanted to see what people would do, like, after you died. Like, I was the opposite. I never had that. So I'm throwing you, Liz. And so it's like, you know, you want to see what happens after you're dead, and nothing fixed itself. Like, she survived and the magic wand isn't waved, and she gets her way, which was, like, it was nice to see, like, because that's not what would happen in the real world.
I was also surprised and impressed, like, as a writer, taking away any personal feelings, that they don't go out of their way to villainize Celine either, even though what she did is pretty unforgivable.
Yeah.
We understand why Celine hates Trudy so much. We may not agree with her, but her point of view has been portrayed very clearly. And they've been very fair at portraying Celine's point of view. And they could have taken the easy way out and just made Celine a terrible person. Or they could have chosen somebody who isn't, like, they could have chosen Alex and had him do something terrible, and it would have been very clear cut. But no, they took someone who we do know of as a good person in general, who's still willing to leave someone to die just because she hates her, you know? And like, wow.
The characters are very three-dimensional, and I've always enjoyed that. Like, you know, even with the characters that are really just the villains, they have other sides to them as well. And we see that later on. And, you know, Celine's the mother, and yet she has it in her power to do things to get what she wants. You don't expect that from her.
Yeah.
Like,
everybody's capable of true darkness.
Yeah. And I think the only thing that actually would have surprised me is if Bray would have sat by Trudy the entire time instead of running off like he always does. And I just needed to throw that in there.
I mean, I get that Bray needed a moment to come to terms with
He always needs a moment.
Going out like that, no.
Right. But yeah, it would have surprised me if he stuck around for one.
Yeah.
I would have been like, wow, Bray, good for you. You finally are making me impressed right now.
To be fair.
Sorry. Go ahead. Yes, please. Lance, to be fair, I want to hear this.
Amber did just bite his head off and put the whole blame on his shoulders. So, yeah.
I wouldn't want to be there either. I would not. Because, one, he's not to blame for what happened. And this is not the first time that Amber has put all of this on his shoulders and said it's his responsibility, which is, again, not fair. I wouldn't want to be there either. I honestly wouldn't. I mean, you can understand what Trudy has become to Bray at this point in time.
Burden.
Like, she's a burden, and it's getting harder for him to give a crap about her every day. You know, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Trudy. His reaction to her suicide attempt says that more than anything. He freaks out. That's his first instinct. He panics. He's screaming for help. Anybody, you know? He doesn't want anything bad to happen to her. But at the same time, it's not fair that this has all been put on his shoulders. And yeah, I think I just want to walk away. I mean, like, this is more trouble than it's worth. I'm not even sure I like you as a person anymore. You know, I get it. I get him leaving. I'm like, I'm going to go do something productive. There's nothing I can do while I'm here, you know? Not to mention the last time he spoke to her, she told him she didn't want anything to do with him because he's not in love with her and she can't handle that. And she told him, go away. I never want to see you again. So he's like, fine. I'll go away.
He might even feel that it's better for her to stay away.
Yeah, he's bringing her nothing but pain because he can't love her, you know, and no matter how he tries to couch those words and say it in a way that might be understanding and not hurt her feelings, it's not what she wants to hear. She gets angry and flips out every time he tries to be honest with her. So yeah, I could totally understand him thinking, I just should stay away, you know? It's not like I'm helping her. I'm just making things worse.
Who knows if she might do it again?
Not to mention, Bray does have a habit of not enjoying conflict and avoiding it when he can.
Mhm.
And at least what he goes to do is productive. He doesn't just wander off. He's like, I'm going to go get some food. I'll go do something helpful while, everybody's really heated right now. Come back when everyone has cooled down. And I'm sure it hurts him that Amber blames him for this because he does like her and he doesn't want her thinking badly of him. Not saying he couldn't have handled things better, but again, he's like 16, so
Mhm.
I'm not even sure I would handle that now.
No, I'll be back, honest.
Take me with you then.
No, Celine. It's too dangerous out there.
I could help you.
No, I'm better on my own, really.
You're gonna meet her, aren't you?
What? Who?
Her. That Ebony.
No! I'm not gonna meet anybody. Not if I can help it anyway, okay?
Okay, just be careful.
Don't worry, I will.
Give me a kiss.
Sticking with the scene of Bray leaving, what do the panel think of Celine choosing that moment to try and kind of push forward her advances? I mean, what do you think of their so-called relationship so far?
Ugh. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
So that entire scene while watching it this afternoon, like just cringe, and then that kiss at the end, I was like, nah, it's gross. Like, if you have to ask for that, that is not a relationship. That's no.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way we've seen him kiss Trudy. Okay, I'll give you a peck on the cheek.
Like,
I can go now, right?
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Trudy confessing her love to him right after Martin died.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? Now is not the time. No consideration for how he must be feeling. Celine is dealing with her own emotions, so she's coming in to try and project onto Bray. She wants him to absolve her. And so she's looking for emotional support from him. And he's just like, she's not really considering how heavy this must be on him and how he must be feeling. I mean, she makes a token effort by saying, it's not your fault, or if it is your fault, it's my fault too. And he's just like, I don't need this right now. And then she's really needy. And then she accuses him of going off with Ebony. Like, she's all over the place in this conversation.
Right.
You can see the regret in his eyes that he ever got involved with this.
I am on a crazy train right now, and
Exactly.
I need out. Like,
He's like, what is with my taste in women? I have been striking out left and right in the last year.
I don't know, like, if this is just a Dwayne thing or what, but he does the best, like, internal panic faces. Like, and you see it right there. Like, I don't know what that came from, but yeah, you see it. Like, you definitely see the primal, like, oh moment.
Yeah.
And he does it a lot.
It does set the stage, though. This whole thing, like, look, you mentioned his face, total panic. He's starting to really regret ever getting involved with Celine. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He'd been leaning into a comfort. That's what it'd been. A very beautiful girl who was making him feel better about what he was going through, and at first wasn't asking anything of him. He leaned into that comfort, and now it's starting to feel a little fatal attraction for him. And he's just like, crap. But if you'll notice, like, he will at least try to continue this with Celine. And I can't help but wonder if it's because he didn't want another Trudy episode.
Right.
Like, he didn't want to try ending things with Celine and starting this whole thing up with her. Like, he was just fine. Okay, I like her. I'm attracted to her. Fine. I'm just going to stick it out. Even though he's already looking at her like, I want out of this. I need an escape plan. SOS.
This is like
CQD.
blink twice if you need out.
Exactly. His only real crime is being a good-looking kid. You know what I mean? He didn't ask for all this. He's attractive to these young women. He didn't ask for all this trouble, but he's being blamed for it,
And yet he always manages to pick out the crazy ones.
Sometimes crazy tracks.
Well, I guess when you are attractive to a great number of people, you're going to get a lot of variety in those people. So some crazies are going to slip through. But yeah, Celine's behavior was ridiculous. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Run, Bray, just run. She's just as bad. Go. It's ridiculous how she is. She's panicking because he's leaving. She immediately assumes he's leaving. And then when she realizes he's not, she's like, okay, then take me with you. And he's like, no, I clearly want to be alone right now, you know? So I'm going to tell you it's dangerous and you wouldn't be any good to me out there. And then she's like, you're going to go to Ebony, aren't you? And he's like, what? No, what the? You don't even know about me and Ebony. You're just jumping onto that bandwagon. Oh my gosh. And then she's like, kiss me. And the look on his face is just, whatever it takes to get out of this building, I'll do it.
Right?
It's like she literally transforms into Trudy in front of his eyes, and he's like, how has this happened?
Run
Again.
head for the hills.
And at least for him, Trudy has an excuse because they've known each other a long time and she was going through a lot of hormonal changes. You know, like for him, he gets why Trudy's going through it. But he's looking at Celine like, where is this coming from? I thought you were stable. Apparently not.
Nope.
Absolutely not.
The desperation on Celine. And I think a lot of it has to do with her guilt and knowing what role she played in this. If Bray were to ever find out what she did. So I think there's part of it is just trying to reestablish a connection with him to reassure herself because she's clearly projecting a lot.
I always wondered if it didn't feel bad that Trudy made it.
Oh yeah, I think in a way, because then I think she would have reacted slightly different if Trudy had just been gone, if Trudy hadn't woke up. That's what she was anticipating.
Yes, he was planning on being there to comfort Bray, be there for him, his shoulder to lean on, to cry on, and then live happily ever after with him and Brady.
But Trudy staying alive really makes your guilt manifest even stronger. It's like being haunted by a ghost of your crimes. You know, because Trudy's still here. She still has to look at her and be reminded of what she did. And I'm sure there is a tiny bit of like, oh, damn it, you know? And then, of course, having to see everybody else's reactions and realizing that she could have prevented that. She played a part in this. And looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing just how terrible a thing you can do as a person and starting to hate yourself because you want to believe you're better than that. Nobody wants to be the villain in the story. No one wants to see themselves as the villain in the story.
And yet then there you are.
Yeah, because, you know, if you're in a fight with someone, at some point, most of the time you can justify the way you're treating them because of what they're doing to you. But every now and then you're going to cross a line where you can't justify your actions anymore. That can be a hard line to run into.
Let Bray had it coming, John. You can't treat a girl like that.
Like what, Lex?
Well, you know, messing her about and all that.
You mean like going with other women?
Well, yeah.
Of course, you'd never do a thing like that, would you, Lex?
I mean, there's the kid and all.
It's not his kid.
Well, no, but...
And he'd never asked her to marry him, had he?
Well, no.
What do you think, Titan? What do you think of a man who's promised one girl? Trying to have it off with someone else?
I think people worry too much. Right, Lex?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Lex and Tai-san, who both are very pleased with themselves after the previous night's events, but they both see things quite differently. It's also this scene that shows Lex in the middle of a very coded conversation between Zandra and Tai-san. What do you think about what happened between Lex and Tai-san and their opposing views?
I'm going to leave this one to you, Hill.
He's laughing. This scene cracks me up. Just because I love how just coded it is, and you're just like, is anyone this stupid? Like, come on. Like, she's sitting right there. Please call them out.
I was actually waiting for Zandra to pick up on it.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is the moment where I realized that, yes, Zandra can be very smart, but she can also be very dumb. And I wanted her to call them out on it. Like, it is such a slap in the face to her, but yet so funny.
Yeah.
And it cracks me up.
And she's just sitting there thinking it's about Lex and Ebony and not about Lex and Tai-san, who's right next to her.
And I think there's one moment where Zandra like looks at, you know, somebody or at the camera or something, and you're like, this is it. She's gonna call him out. She's gonna call, and she doesn't. And it's so like
The perspectives in that conversation are very fascinating, and it's kind of I want to give the writers a pat on the back, because you literally have 3 different people in a conversation and they're all talking about something completely different.
yes.
And yet, if you didn't know the context, you wouldn't know. Like, if you imagine just seeing the scene written without any of the actors' actual expressions, without any reference points. I love the fact that on the surface, this conversation makes perfect sense. But once you have the context, it has a completely different meaning. And I really like that. It's very layered conversation. It's kind of sad because you have Tysan finally, I mean, not Tysan, but Zandra really calling Lex out because he's, for whatever, jumped on the bandwagon of blaming Bray for the way he's acting with Celine and Trudy. And Zandra's calling out because he has no right to say anything about how Bray behaves with the girls. And so she's right, you know what I mean? And it's like, but it's hard to get on board with her because she's so blind to what's happening right in front of her now. And watching Lex trying to dance between the two of them, he doesn't want to let anything on to Zandra. He doesn't want her to know that he's still messing around behind her back. But at the same time, he doesn't want Tysan to think he cares what Zandra thinks. He's trying to act like he's above that. And so he's constantly looking at Tysan for cues of how he should handle this conversation.
Yeah.
And Tysan doesn't give a crap if he goes up in flames. She's just curious about how he'll handle the conversation. She's amused at him and amused at how much power she has over him right now. But she really does not care what happens and whether or not he trips up, or even if he tells, Zandra that they slept together. She doesn't care. It's not a secret to her,
Lex has everything to lose in the conversation.
Right.
Where, like, Zandra has stuff to lose too, but Tysan is like the kid with the magnifying glass and the ants. Like, she just wants to see what happens with it all. She's a puppet master. That's what I'm going.
And it's also sad because Zandra is being very honest about her realization that Lex has just been using her, and it's kind of ugly. There's something really lowbrow about her just coming straight out. They're being very honest about the fact that this has always been about sex, and this is how close she is to admitting that she knows he's never loved her, and she'll forget that conveniently later on, or at least she'll be convinced otherwise later on. But it's still sad, because we know how much she cares about him. And like, she's standing up for herself, but she still doesn't know that he's like, it's not getting through to him because he doesn't care at this point because he just got what he wanted from someone else.
Yeah, and he even like says that, and Zandra looks so smug with herself when she's like, it's the only way you're going to get what you want. And like, there's a little part of it, like, he's kind of taken back by that, but also is like, no, I did just get what I want without the commitment towards the end.
Yeah, there's so many layers to their relationship because she has no problem taking a giant dump on his chest of his self-esteem by making it clear, like, what woman would even want you? No woman here would put up with you or tolerate
looks across the room,
and for a second he stares at himself like, that's what you think of me? But then he's like, wait, no, someone did want me, but it's like, it's such an ugly, like, truth coming out of Zandra because she's so upset with him, so hurt by him. She's looking at, like, she wants him to know, you're nothing special. You're lucky that I'm so crazy about you and that I put up with you. And damn,
claws
his
come out.
biggest cheerleader to, like, emotionally abusive, like, you're scum. You're just lucky I like you, it's good acting. And that's, I love all the dynamics happening.
You forget for a while that they are kids at that point.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very adult, moment.
And I'm a big fan of Lex and Tysan. They were my first OTP, I will gush about them a lot come later on, but part of me gets kind of giddy seeing them together, like, here begins this crazy dynamic between these two. And it's really interesting watching Tysan. This is all just a game. It's all an experiment to her. Can she fix him? Can she make things better? And she really doesn't care about his feelings. And it's interesting watching Lex get played by someone in the same way that he tends to play other people and not care about their feelings. You know, the difference is Tysan's not doing it to hurt anyone. She just genuinely doesn't care.
She likes watching how people tick.
She can be very impersonal. You know, she doesn't for one minute consider that Lex might develop feelings for her or think they have something, you know, because that's not how she sees this at all. It was just a physical act that was enjoyable, and that was it as far as she's concerned. I really love that conversation later. The presumptuous attitude he has about this. Because she had sex with him, then it's totally going to happen again. And he's trying to orchestrate things so that he'll be alone when she comes to him again. And his shock is like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, but why? We'll have time. She's like, it's not about availability, buddy. That was last night. I wanted to have sex with you last night. I don't want to have sex with you now. And he's utter shock. Like, he cannot fathom this.
I love that moment, though.
Lex has never been in this situation. He's never had someone, he's never been with a woman who is sexually free and independent and, you know, is actually calling the shots completely about the sex. And he's just so lost. He doesn't know what to do with that. Like, oh, she's not going to be available to me whenever I want it. I don't have any say in this whatsoever. But if I want to get it from her, I'm going to have to fall in line.
Right.
I just love watching that. I mean, after everything Lex did, it's so great to see him basically a slave to her will.
Yeah, he becomes a pawn to his passions. But she was right. I'll say this. Now, remember, Tysan, she only started this experiment to take care of Lex's frustrations because it was poisonous for the tribe. And you can't help but notice he's been in a good mood all day.
I have to say how annoyingly chipper he was throughout the whole.
Annoyingly chipper. It's true, though. Very
like,
true.
He's not being a jerk today. You know what I mean? Like, even when he says some crap about Bray, he's not being his usual dickish self about it.
No.
You know, all day he hasn't been combative. He hasn't been he's not trying to pick a fight with Zandra. You know, not really. She's the one who wants to have a fight. And he's just like, no, I'm not interested. I'm not angry. I'm feeling good. You know, even when he's teasing Ryan, he's not being a dick to Ryan. You know, he's being playful.
I do like those scenes with him and Ryan. I think those are good.
And come on, man, do me a solid, you know? And so Tysan was onto something, you know, because he's been in a much better mood. And
I do believe that's probably why she was like, not tonight. Because, you know, you're in a good mood. You don't need it. You're in a great mood. We're solid. I'll come back to you when you're, you know, a piece of work.
Yeah, when you need another dose, I'll be back.
Right? It's true, though.
Natural medicine.
Like, I'm just imagining that somewhere she's actually, like, has a notebook, trial and error on Lex.
But could you imagine, like, if Lex was his normal self and the whole Trudy thing going on? Like, it would have been a hot mess.
Yeah.
It would have been a hot mess.
Clever way to take him out of that equation, like, out of the emotional equation, by distracting him with Tysan.
With boobs. I just had to say it.
I really do think Tysan's an amazing counter to his misogyny and his abusive tendencies, because she won't be his victim in any way. And I just love how she throws him for a loop. Like, he does not know what to make of Tysan. He's never met a woman like her. He's had strong women in his life, but Tysan's just a whole different ball game. In his eyes, you know, it's either you're a woman like Zandra, you're, you know, the virgin queen who needs to be seduced and cared for, or you're someone like Amber, where that's completely off the table, you know, and she'll probably punch you if you ever tried anything with her. He's not used to a strong woman who will sleep with you, absolutely, and enjoy it, but only on her terms. That's something in the middle. He is just like, what is this? I don't know what you are. Where did you come from?
And I mean, I think that's part of the attraction for him too, though. As much as she's playing him, he's playing her. Well, somewhat.
It will be fun watching him try to solve the Tysan puzzle for a while.
Like, and it is fun. You're right.
Yeah. And I just love watching him struggle.
Like, he almost looks kind of adorable at how clueless he is when, you know, he's just staring at her like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
What happened?
Like, this isn't working. Like, this is not how this is supposed to go.
And she just, you know, goes straight back to meditating. I'll tell you when I want to do it again. He's like, what? I don't. Is that how this is supposed to work? Okay, well, she didn't say no. I guess it's gonna happen again, but I have to wait till she wants to?
Of a what?
Unfathomable. It's a cool contrast. You have Lex who feels everything like on the surface. He's all spark and fire, ready to explode. And Tai-San is such a cool contrast. Everything's still waters run deep with her. It's almost like she doesn't feel anything at all. So putting those two together, fantastic.
This episode has quite a few references to Paul and his disappearance. We have Bray and Amber both going out to look for him separately. And in a scene with Patsy, Chloe makes a suggestion that maybe he went off to find some more deaf kids. It was a bit of an little scene to try and Patsy's like.
I do. I want to imagine there is some tribe of like deaf kids running around, little utopia, just like signing to each other. I want to think that behind the scenes, they needed to buy some time. They knew things were not working out with the actor who played Paul, and they kind of put him on a shelf until they could figure it out. So we had a good couple episodes where we just didn't mention Paul. We didn't want to think about Paul. We had other things we needed to do, and we're still working with how we can integrate him. And now it's gotten to the point where we've decided, or it has come to the point where he's not going to continue on with us behind the scenes. We've drawn up the contracts. We've discussed that it's best with everyone. So now we are scrambling, and we are trying to write him out retroactively because he was on the shelf not moving, and he's gone, and we need to catch everyone else up.
Yeah, I was going to say, it felt like we had a couple of episodes of just nothing, not even been mentioned.
Yeah.
Now it feels like we got all these mentions all at once, like a sudden rush
Exactly.
to try and explain it away.
That's what I've always thought, is there was definitely some movement behind the scenes, because I think we all know now kind of what happened a little bit, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a good way of putting him somewhere where he wouldn't have been missed. It was an easy way to say, oh, Lex yelled at him, or, he, whatever it was, and that he just kind of went away. And now we need to put him in this utopia, or we need to explain something, but we don't want to give him an unhappy ending. We need to kind of squirrel him away, because the tribe also has experience, and it will happen later, where characters have disappeared because of doing other things, and then they've needed to come back, and we've needed to write them back in. So I think they were kind of this is our first look as to a character that may, hopefully, maybe not come back. We just needed to stick them somewhere until we worked it all out.
I like the relationship between Patsy and Chloe as it's forming, especially in regards of Chloe. This is a very important moment in their relationship. Patsy always had her brother. The world ended, but she still had him. And she wasn't all that concerned about having a friendship with Chloe. She didn't need her, and Chloe didn't connect with people in general anyway. And here they are. Here's Chloe actually making a deep effort to connect with a person who needs it very hard. Like, Patsy is lost with the realization that her brother hasn't come home. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to function. And Chloe gets to use that little part of her that takes care of animals. She gets to use it on Patsy. Here's someone who's small like her that needs caring for. And she spends the whole episode doing everything in her power to distract Patsy and to take care of Patsy. And it really cements their friendship. They couldn't depend on anybody else. All the other older kids, they come and go, but they discover something in each other. And I think it's very sweet seeing Chloe put that effort in with a person, and how hard she's trying to make Patsy feel better, and the concessions she's making for her. And so that's very adorable. Fussing over which one of the hens laid the egg. Because Chloe's, in a way, Chloe's teaching Patsy how important, loving animals can be in filling the hole in your heart that gets left by humans, And so I thought that was adorable. Talking about Dal's guilt. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about it. It's very I don't know, it seems very in tandem with Dal and how much responsibility he's already taken for Trudy at this point. I mean, he's put himself on the line for her already a couple times. So he's already kind of made himself responsible for her physical well-being. And like he says, my parents made such a fuss about, securing the pills in the house, so that someone can't hurt themselves with them. But it's like, Dal, you had them locked away in your bag and your room is downstairs. Like, you had no way of knowing someone would just come in and take your stuff. And of course, I think part of it is due to he does have an affection for Trudy, and it's starting to come out because he looks at Bray like, you have this beautiful girl who wants you and you're taking it for granted. You idiot. You're such a jerk. You big, tall, gorgeous jerk. I hate you. I would do anything to have this girl be crazy about me, And then, of course, you have Dal and Jack, which is very interesting because Dal doesn't need Jack the way Jack needs Dal. And Jack doesn't fulfill the human quota that Dal needs in his life. Dal is clearly put off by how quickly Jack just doesn't give a crap that Trudy tried to kill herself. Like, I love when Jack came into the room, he just does really quickly reassures himself, like, she's not dying, right? Okay, great. I can get back on asking Dal about our project. Like, he does not care.
I love when he substitutes him with Ryan, though.
Yes, like, Jack desperately does need a sounding board. No matter how much he says, he doesn't. Because as soon as he chases Ryan off the first time, but Ryan just kind of stumbles back in, and Jack just immediately picks up their conversation like it never ended. And again, he needs someone who's more pragmatic than him to, like, think of, because, Jack hyper focuses and he's trying to think of this turbine and he's got all these other ideas that are super complicated. That's why he writes them off. But the simplest idea comes from a simple person like Ryan. And it never even crossed Jack's mind to go with the simplest idea.
I love that Ryan just got that moment, to give that little bit of input showing that he's not a complete idiot. He can come up with things that are useful.
I also like when Dal is explaining like the signs and the S shape and everything, and then gets cut off before he can fully finish that idea. And Jack is like, but wait, I can't function. Like, come back. Like, and you see him like almost like, please.
Dal has gotten used to having to hold Jack's hand through these things and placate his ego when he does it. Because, Jack comes to him going, oh, I thought I'd give you the opportunity to put your input in, and Dal's like, really? Dal knows you just don't know what to do next. So that's why you came to me. You need me to flesh out the idea. And
but like, even as he's explaining it, like, he doesn't get the full end result, and Jack can't follow the next step to be like, oh yeah, the S shape, and then, blah, 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 blah. And that's how it will happen. Like, he needs Dal to walk the step by step so that Jack can put it together and then take all the credit.
Yeah. And Dal's like, I don't care about this stuff as much as you do. Nowhere near as important to me.
Trudy's more important right now.
Right. There's a human who requires my attention. And Jack's like, but she's not dead, dude.
She's not a machine, so she's not important in Jack's world.
Exactly. Like, Jack might as well, he should just be like one of those memes. It's like, but did you die? Right? Like, does it matter? She's still alive. Does it really matter what happened? Because, I mean, Jack, literally, he could not have given a crap. Like, as soon as he hears what Trudy did, he's like, girls. They're so stupid. Like, Jack, she could have died. You don't care.
Yeah, well, Jack's a pragmatic one. She's dead? No, she's not dead. Then what's the issue?
You remember when she was sick with the infection and they had to give her the antibiotics? What was what Jack said? Don't waste the water.
Yeah, right?
Even Lex was like, shut up, Jack. It just blows my mind how little of a damn Jack cares. He has not been affected by what happened to Trudy at all. He's just annoyed that, Dal, why are you so hung up on this? She's still alive. Let's go. We got projects to make and
things to do, computers to build.
And Dal just doesn't have the patience for him. He can't even bother explaining it to him. He's just like, no, dude, you already know that I care about people. That's something you can't understand. And I feel for Dal, because he does really care about Trudy a lot. And it's sad that those feelings will go unrequited, especially when he starts to admit them to himself. And I get the sense that Amber is getting her first inklings that her bestie may have a crush. And she knows it's not gonna end well for him. She even says, like, dude, you don't have to watch her. I'll do it. She won't be grateful for what you're doing. Because the way she sees it is Trudy will just end up hurting him, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, dude, please don't get it. You know, she's thinking in her head, do not get invested in this girl like this. She won't appreciate it. She'll just spit in your face, you know? And I don't want that to happen to you because you're a nice guy. And that will be Dal's legacy. Unrequited love. This poor guy.
Poor Dal.
Poor boy.
So friend zoned. That is him.
Right?
Like it's literally like the phantom zone for him. He's just floating in space between two panes of glass. That's where the women have thrown him. Give him a bone, guy.
And then the only girls who end up paying him any attention are way too young for him.
And it's just for practice.
Yeah, it was just practice because he was like the safe, easy guy. Because he's in the friend zone, and no matter what we do, he'll still be okay.
You know what's sad about Dal is that he is that guy who he's not going to peak in high school. You know what I mean? But that's like good because it means he's going to peak later. He's that guy who didn't get any play in high school. He was just everybody's friend. You know, even he went to prom and he was like someone's beard for prom. You know what I mean? And it's not till you see him at the 10-year, 15, 20-year reunion and he's made bank, you know. he finally had his glow up.
I'm just gonna say it. Too bad he died before that happened.
And he dies before he even gets a chance to. Ashworth was just starting to come into his own physically, starting to get his style on. He put on a few inches, like, come on, baby, and dead.
Dead.
What?
You guys wronged that kid. And we're like, nope, sorry. There's only room for so many hotties on this show.
Right. And Bray's taking up like 4 slots. Because everybody wants Bray.
I almost did a spit take on my keyboard.
I have to, man. Like, if I see that to just dig in a Bray, I'm gonna have to. What'd I do?
How's Trudy?
How do you think? She cried herself to sleep.
Well, I'll go see her.
She doesn't need you disturbing her.
I won't wake her. I'll just keep an eye on her.
Dal's been doing that all day.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dal. I'll take over now.
I think it would be best if he kept away from her.
What?
Trudy needs somebody she can rely on. Not someone who keeps disappearing and letting her down. She doesn't need you.
So that brings us to our final thoughts of the episode, where, wow, I thought it was quite an interesting scene because we see Amber and Dal gang up on Bray and forbid him from seeing Trudy. Yeah, what did you think about that?
I loved it.
Finally.
Dal standing up to Bray like that, with you can't treat her like that. She doesn't need your behavior in her life. That's not how she's going to get better right now.
Just like Amber telling him, like, cool, you did something we need. Do you want me to pat you? Like, woohoo! Yeah, finally someone says it. Like, let me have a tiny parade for you, Bray. You did something.
I'm on the fence with it. On one hand, I do understand, like, logically why Amber and Dal would feel this way, because it's like whatever Bray's been doing to handle the situation hasn't helped. Like, he hasn't handled the situation properly. It just keeps getting worse. He's had time to handle the situation, time to, you know, make things straight with Trudy, and he clearly keeps dropping the ball there. You know what I mean? Like, they get into a fight, he runs away, comes back, doesn't want to actually deal with the fight. We've already seen that. So I can totally understand people going, okay, look, we gave you a chance to fix whatever the frick is with you and Trudy, even if it's just you breaking it off as harshly as you have to, and you haven't handled it. And it's gotten so serious that this girl tried to kill herself. So maybe you just need to stay the frick away from her. At some point, you feel like you just have to step in because they can't handle it themselves. So I get that. I do. Because what is he going to do? He's going to go in there. He and Trudy are not going to discuss their issues because Bray doesn't do that. they'll probably get into another fight, or Trudy will be like, I'm sorry, I did this, and Bray will say, no, it's totally okay. You know, me and Sabine, we talked about the fact that Bray, because he doesn't ever really call Trudy out on her actions, she doesn't learn that what she's doing is wrong. So they're just going to continue that freaking cycle until she gets upset. He says the wrong thing. She's going to scream at him to leave the room, and he will, and then he'll leave them all. So I get why they're like, dude, just, you haven't handled this, so you need to just stay away from her. You know what I mean? Like, I get that. I totally do. And I agree. Like, Bray, you haven't handled this. It has only gotten worse. But in the same time, I think they're being unfair because, one, they're blaming Bray for something that isn't his fault. It's not his fault Trudy did this. It's not his fault that he's not in love with her and that she can't handle that. And two, the only reason Amber and Dal are acting like this is because of their own personal feelings. Amber's mad at Bray because she's into him, but he hasn't turned out to be the knight in shining armor she wants him to be. So she's taking out all her anger on him. And Dal is taking his anger out on Bray because he's jealous of him. Because he wants Trudy. And yet Trudy is all gaga for this guy who won't be there for her. So that's where I'm just like, okay, you two, you're just projecting.
Yeah, and I kind of like the two of them ganging up on him because of that. Like, it's like, you know, I want to see the conversation between Amber and Dal where they're like, listen, if we keep Bray away from Trudy, Dal, you can sneak in there and you can be, you know, the knight in shining armor.
No.
And maybe if Bray's distracted and doesn't see Trudy, maybe I can get a play with Bray. And it's just like, I want to see that conversation.
That would be fun.
Because it would have been hilarious.
Like, we both can win here.
Yeah, like, this is awesome. I think he's coming back quick to your spot. Like, act cool.
They do have a point, though. I mean, Bray did the exact same thing when Trudy was ill. Dal was sitting there taking care of her all the time while he was out doing God knows what, and coming back in with, oh, I'll sit with her now.
Like, no,
you didn't do it the first time. You're not going to do it now.
But
it does matter that it is the two of them because they've been here before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sitting by Trudy's side, taking care of her when Bray was the one who brought her into the mall and had a hand in her being in that situation and didn't bother to tell anybody that he would be back. You know, they've been here before. They've been the ones worrying about her and her not being even grateful for them, you know, immediately waking up and asking for Bray. And they got no answers because they have no idea where he is. Which I thought was interesting. I was thinking about what the argument about Trudy, what she had done. Like, was she truly suicidal, or was she just trying to get attention and make people feel bad? And I was thinking about how she behaved when she woke up and how there's an argument for both sides. Like, the fact that she's so unhappy to be alive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The fact that she's woken up in the mall, which is her worst nightmare. Definitely.
And she even says,
right, like, I don't want to be here. I want to be dead. I don't want, like, and I can understand that. You know what I mean? So that definitely is, you know, a point in favor of Trudy truly was suicidal. She saw no way out of the black hole she was in, and she just wanted to be gone, not be there anymore. But then also the fact that her first instinct is to ask for Bray also is an argument that she was just trying to get his attention. You know, because she did say she never wanted to see him again, you know, and yet then she does this thing, and the first thing she's like, where is he? I want him. Why isn't he here? You know, and like, what game are you playing? You know,
I think she was I mean, she might have had a thought, like, you know, if I die, I'm out of the mall and I'm, you know, I don't have to deal with this anymore. But if I live, maybe that also brings Bray closer to me and blah, 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 blah. Like, I think there is both sides to that for her.
There's this romantic ideal she keeps holding him up to, you know, and he, of course, keeps letting her down because he does not feel romantically for her. You know, it would be romantic if he was by her bedside. Because I had this kind of suicidal ideology. You know, I used to fantasize about being on my deathbed and the boy I was in love with would be right there holding my hand crying. To me, that was so freaking romantic, you know? So I do get that. And no one can really live up to that. You know, And it's a dangerous place to let your mind go, especially at that age when you're not mature enough to think about your actions and the consequences of them.
And especially with the state of mind she was in.
Her running from the baby, I felt that in my gut. No pretense. Like, this is how she's always felt. It is too much. Do not bring me that baby. That poor baby. Sandra's all chipper. Like, I've taken care of her. She's been good as gold. She's been a little angel. Here she is.
I kind of feel for Xandra. Like, Xandra thinks she's doing a good thing by giving her baby, and it's not a good thing.
And reassuring her that she took care of the baby. Like, I took care of
you don't have to worry about this.
I made sure she was fine and safe. And also, it's not my baby. Can you take your kid?
Yeah.
I think Sandra was also making the obvious point of, see, I was looking after the baby. Celine didn't do it. I did.
You don't have to worry about Celine coming in and taking your family. I did it.
Because I was trying to be a good friend. I know that you and Celine aren't in a good place, so I took care of the baby. But I'm ready for my life to, have my life back.
Right.
So, we can have her. It does make me laugh because it's such a testament to what being a parent is. Like, Trudy almost died. She's still on mom duty.
Right?
It never ends. You get a couple hours off and then someone shows up with your kid.
With it here, take him back. All yours.
Like, I still have tubes in my arm. Seriously. When I saw that, I was like, man, if that isn't what being a parent is all about, you don't get any off time. There's no sick leave. People are like, here's your kid.
This is the baby. Gotta love it.
Trudy looked like she was going to just upchuck everything. Those eggs, just no pretense. I don't want it. I'm running.
Yeah.
She did make the effort of asking Patsy if Paul had returned, though.
Yeah, it's interesting because it meant that she actually noticed he'd been missing.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yeah.
Well, it points out that Trudy, as much as she may have noticed Paul was missing, she's still clueless as to how Patsy feels about it. Everybody knows Patsy's very upset about her brother, and they're all being very careful, tiptoeing around the fact that Paul is gone. But Trudy's been so self-absorbed in her own mind, she's completely unaware about how other people feel about anything. And so she steps on the landmine because it never occurred to her that Patsy would be very upset that her brother's gone because Trudy isn't in a place where she cares what other people are feeling right now. And so I do think that's an interesting point that's made. Everybody else knows Paul's missing, Patsy's upset. Trudy's clueless to this because she's only been focusing on what she's going through.
Yeah, but in that moment, the moment that Chloe and Patsy come there, Patsy looks happy for a moment.
That is true. But again, it's because if Trudy had been paying attention to anything, she would know that it's not because Paul's back.
Yeah, but she doesn't know.
Because she don't care about anybody right now. And not judging her, it's stating facts. She doesn't care about anybody else, not even her own kid. So, of course, she's clueless to this stuff. I did feel bad for Patsy, though, the way she breaks down like that. She was so happy for a second. Chloe had managed to distract her. And the girls clearly scrambled that egg by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
And they were so excited to present it to Trudy. And Trudy's like, oh, thanks. At least she didn't say, I don't eat eggs.
Right? That's what I was waiting for. Like
she realized she swallowed it down. Like, she didn't look like she wanted those eggs, but she was just like, because Amber's looking at her like, I swear to God, if you upset these kids and reject those eggs,
if you make them cry, I will hurt you.
She's like, oh, thank you so much. It's really sweet of you. And that's why she made an effort and asked about Paul. She's like, I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Because Amber's like a warden.
Well, her mom.
Maybe it was a calculated ask about Paul because it's like, you're gonna make me eat this egg. I'm gonna cut you down.
No.
I hate eggs.
I'm a vegetarian. How's your dead brother? Oh wait.
No.
Sorry. And I love Paul. We know I love Paul, but I just had to say it, okay?
You hate Trudy. We know that.
We're all on the same page.
Vegetarian, how's your dead brother? It's funny, not a lot happens in this episode, but there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of emotional upheaval, Because when I watched it today, it was over so quickly. I was like, wow, like nothing happened, but I had so many thoughts that I wanted to talk about. I'm like, I think we're gonna have some good debates here.
that brings episode 21 to a close. Thank you very much to the panel, and we'll see you next time for episode 22. So until then, bye.
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 Bye.